The girl wandered the snowy streets all by her lonesome. Occasionally, she'd stop and take a look around. There was a building with a sign that read Hitogata Branch Office, neighboring a police station. However, the girl was hesitant to approach either location. It wasn't like she'd done anything wrong. She was just young and scared of stepping into places where hordes of adults got together. That was accentuated by the fact that she rarely spoke to others. All she wanted was to go outside for a bit, yet here she was, overwhelmed. The girl could see a building in the distance. She'd walked all the way from there on her own. Even now, she's still trying to convince herself she wasn't dreaming. Okay. The girl, Satsuki, heaved white steam with a sigh. Her feet had grown benumbed from the cold. Though it wasn't so bad that she couldn't walk, her thin socks were still moist, her toes burned with pain. She felt numb in general. She couldn't even crouch, since she was concerned she'd get the hem of her kimono wet if she did. But just as she was considering taking shelter indoors, a voice echoed out from behind her. Satsuki turned around. Standing there was a boy about her age.
どちら様?
Satsuki was so flustered that she simply stared off into space. She didn't know how she was supposed to respond in situations like these.
しぐさ神社のお客さんかい?
Another boy of roughly the same age suddenly cut in.
お客さん? あれ、リヒトは知らないのか? こういうことはひな神の方が僕は何も聞いてないけど。
The boys conversed in front of Satsuki.
私、神社に戻りたくて。
Satsuki nervously explained her plight.
しぐさ神社はこの道をずっと行って石段を登ってたけど、その格好じゃつら。リヒト、背負って行ってやれよ。
Satsuki yelped and lifted the boy called Rito.
なんで僕が? 日本男児たる者、か弱き乙女を守るのが本分だろ?
Satsuki sensed a hint of ragging in his tone.
そりゃそうだろうけど。
私、歩けますから。
She didn't want to cause them any trouble. However, just as she was about to leave, she tripped and went careening toward the ground. Snow danced off the street.
大丈夫か?
The older boy looked down at Satsuki and the younger boy, shaking his head with a sigh. Though she'd fallen right on her backside, Satsuki managed to muster a nod.
だったら立ってくれるかな? リヒトが潰れちまう。
The younger boy was squashed right under Satsuki.
申し訳あり。
いや、別に。
The boy awkwardly got up and wiped the snow off himself.
日本男児の本会だな。
The older boy laughed.
そんなんじゃないって。ほら。
The boy crouched down and offered his back to Satsuki.
少し濡れてるかもしれないけど。
The boy clumsily urged her on. It was then Satsuki realized that he was offering her a piggyback ride.
でも。
せっかくなんだし、リヒトの言葉に甘えてもいいんじゃないかな。
Taxi service.
失礼します。
She placed her hands on the boy's shoulders and leaned against his back. It wasn't wet at all. The boy slowly rose to his feet. He seemed surprisingly strong despite his scrawny build.
申し訳ありません、リヒトさん。
あやと。ひな神あやと。あだ名がリヒト。そっちのはナオちゃん。黒谷直り。
私、さつきと申します。
じゃあ、さっちゃんでいいかい?
I like the way that they wrote that. Because he clearly said Sachan, right? Like, how's that sound for a nickname? Is it Satty? But for some reason they decided to localize that as Satty. That's so dumb. Like, the other nicknames are like what they were called, right? Like, Ayato is referred to as Rito. You can hear when they talk. He calls Naori now because you hear that when they talk. Then he says, how about Sachan? And then they say, Satty. Why? Why would you do that? Satsuki blinked in confusion.
なおちゃんさ、初対面でいきなりあだ名をつけるのはどうかと思うよ。
It was only after hearing those words that she realized it was her own nickname.
親しみが持てていいだろう。君もそう思うだろう、さっちゃん。
Yes. Sachan, not Satty. Why? You had no problem doing the other nicknames properly, but Sachan, like, oh no, we can't use Chan. Oh no, that's how could the Westerners ever understand Chan?
ええ。
Satsuki nodded, though admittedly she was still struggling to process everything. This was the first time she'd ever been given a nickname.
君がそれでいいのなら。じゃあ行くよ。
Ayato took off. Satsuki held on for dear life. His warmth seeped right into her.
ちょっと苦しい。
申し訳ありません。
Naori chuckled from the rear. They walked down a road cleared of snow, arrived at the center of the settlement, an area called Kamihina.
リヒトさん、もう私。
Satsuki spoke up once they reached the crossroads.
無理しなくてもいいのに。
Ayato said that despite panting up clouds of steam.
この先はさすがにやめた方がいいと思うぞ。
Naori looked up ahead. Before them was the stone stairway to a building resting near the top of the mountain, Shigasa's shrine.
それとも、もっとさっちゃんとくっついていたいのか？そんなことあるわけないだろ。
Ayato crouched down.
ありがとうございました。
Satsuki hastily got off him and straightened out her kimono. Ayato stretched as far as his body would allow.
さっちゃんは村に来たのは初めて？
ええ。
じゃあ軽く説明してあげよう。まずはここ。上品名と呼ばれているのが集落の中心になる場所だ。
Naori threw his arms out.
うちの黒屋委員はすぐそこにあるから、何かあったら来るといいよ。うちは上品名でも少し離れてて。
左？
Satsuki looked to her left.
いや、そっちは右品名。さっきいたところが前品名で、神社があるのが後品名だから。
Ayato turned Satsuki around as he said that.
これで左手側。向こうの方に僕の家があるんだ。
そうですか。
左右と上品名に人は集中してるかな。前品名は旅館と村役場の出張所。それに駐在所があるよ。じゃ、行こうか。
Ayato began ascending the stone stairs. It was a steep slope, so the snow had been thoroughly cleared off the stairway, leaving little to none behind. Still, it was long, making an arduous trip either way.
ここは駐在の高山さんがいつも雪かきしてるんだ。
Ayato resumed the explanation.
あの人はさやさんに惚れてるらしいからね。仕事にも気合が入るんだろ。
そうなのですか？
Now that was a familiar name. Saya Shigasa, the woman who'd been taking care of Satsuki ever since she'd arrived.
本人に聞いても否定するだろうけどね。
Naori smirked.
あの人は妙なところで真面目だから、仕草のじいさんのためとか言いそうだけど。
Ayato nodded.
あのじいさんが降りてくることなんてめったにないだろ。うちのじいさんが往診に行ってるくらいだし。
はあ。
Satsuki just nodded politely, not following much of the conversation.
いつまでここにいるの？
It was Ayato who came forth with a question this time.
それは申し訳ありません。よくわかりません。
Satsuki shook her head. She didn't have the authority to decide how long she could remain here after all.
3月にある祭りまでは行ってほしいな。なあ、リヒト。そうだね。
お祭りですか
？3月3日に神社で巫女を迎える祭りがあるんだよ。年明けからはその準備とかで忙しくなるんだ。そうなのかい？リヒトはほんと何も知らないんだな。
Looked like the wind had been knocked out of Naori's sails.
そういうのは全部じいちゃんとばあちゃんがやってるから。と、着いた。
Ayato reached the top of the stairs. A giant shrine archway loomed tall over him.
ありがとうございました。
Satsuki bowed.
石段からこっち。俺たちは何もしてないけどね。なおちゃんはずっとついて歩いてただけじゃないか。
Ayato bounded. Satsuki found herself smiling.
仲がよろしいのですね。
年が近いのは少ないからね。他にも何人か一緒につるんでるのはいるけど。そうだ、今度紹介するよ。
え？
口やかましいのもいるし、女の子は女の子同士で仲良くなった方がいいと思うしね。
そうですか。でも仲良くなれるかは不安です。
心配ないと思うけどな。まあ、その話はまた今度で。お迎えも来たようだし。
Now he turned toward the shrine. A man and woman emerged from the office adjacent to the shrine proper. They were Kensei, the senior priest, and his wife, Mia.
こんにちは、ケンセイさん、ミヤさん。
Naoto greeted them right off the bat, with Ayato quickly following suit.
さつきさんを連れてきてくれたのかい？
Interesting choice of attire there. Because if we remember from when they showed us Toji, she said she was following someone dressed in white robes. I see.
はい。
申し訳ありません。勝手に出歩いてしまって。
Satsuki hung her head like a scolded dog.
構わないよ。そろそろ皆に紹介しなければと思っていたところだから。
挨拶は済ませましたか？はい、お二人には。
さつきさんはお客様と聞きました。ええ、近いうちにひな神にも挨拶に出向かせるから、おじい様に伝えておいてくれないか？わかりました。
Ayato nodded.
さつきさん、さえが待っていますよ。はい。
Satsuki nodded before facing the boys once more.
いろいろとご迷惑をおかけしてしまい。
She bowed deeply.
いや、僕は別に。また今度遊ぼうな。
The boys went back down the stairs.
さて、
Kensei turned to Mia.
赤切れになるといけないから足を用意してくれないかな。いや、
すでに準備はできていますよ。さあ、さつきさん、申し訳ありません。
Satsuki sat at the edge of the wooden floor and soaked her bare feet in a wash basin full of hot water. Her toes ached with heat, bringing back sensations she'd temporarily forgotten.
よく揉んで血行を良くしなくてはね。
Mia took a towel and massaged Satsuki's feet.
ありがとうございます。あなたはお客様なのですから、万一のことがあっては大変ですもの。
Mia thoroughly wiped Satsuki's feet, making sure there wasn't even a single drop of water left between her toes.
何をされているのですか？
Suddenly, a voice hailed Mia from behind.
さつきさんが足を拭いている。そのようなこと、姉様がなさる必要はありません。
Saya marched over, snatching the towel from Mia.
でも赤切れになると大変ですから。必要ありません。
Saya looked down at Satsuki after making her cold proclamation.
勝手に出歩いて。ケンセイさんが許可したとはいえ、本来許されることではありませんよ。申し訳ありません。
Satsuki looked away and apologized to Saya.
さや、こちらのことについては私が取り仕切っているのですから、余計なことはなさらないで、姉様。ええ。
Mia nodded and got up.
さつきさん、足だけではなく指先はしっかりと乾かしておいて。はい、ありがとうございます。
Mia took the wash basin and left.
戻りますよ。
Saya grabbed Satsuki's arm and dragged her to her feet before she could even say anything.
はい、かしこまりました。
Satsuki was brought to the room she'd been kept in ever since her arrival.
あなたが勝手に出ることは許しませんよ。
Saya left the room with those words. So guest in quotation marks. Gotcha. I went straight home to his family clinic after parting with Ayato at the crossroads in Kamihina. The sun set early in the winter, so it had already gotten dark. Houses were illuminated here and there. The settlement had adopted electricity rather early, despite the residents' otherwise meager lifestyles. I suppose that's something else we have to thank Hinagami Pharmaceuticals for, huh? Nori hurried home as the thought popped into his head.
あら、なおちゃん。
Suddenly, someone called out to him from up ahead.
ナナコ。
The figure was Nanako Sawashiro, a nurse who worked at the Kuroya clinic.
もう帰り？
そうよ。で、なおちゃん、目上の人にはさんをつけなきゃダメよ。
No, it's because I don't.
だったら俺のこともナオちゃんって呼ぶのやめてくれませんかね？
なおちゃんはなおちゃんじゃない。
My point exactly. She never stopped calling him now, no matter how many times he asked. Hence, he partially called her Nanako as an act of protest.
で、また親父さん？
そうなのよ。年々わがままになっちゃって困っちゃう。
Nanako smiled wryly. Her father was a former prospector who'd started working at home ever since his health took a turn for the worse. Thus, Nanako had become a nurse to serve as his caregiver and generally worked at the Kuroya clinic. Nanako stretched far and wide. Naoto's eyes were momentarily glued to her bountiful chest, which swayed prominently even under her coat. However, he looked away just as abruptly. Ah, it's just cold, don't worry about it.
気のせいじゃないですか。
そう？
夕日のせいですよ。
The sun wasn't even out.
そうね。
Nanako giggled. Naoto couldn't tell whether she'd seen right through him.
それじゃあなおちゃん。
Nanako waved and took her leave.
どうもやりにくいよな。
I bet you wish you could figure out how to handle her. Night had come. Naoto was relaxing in the living room after finishing dinner with his family. Said family consisted of himself, his father Yuzura, and his grandfather, So. Both his mother and grandmother had passed away when he was young, leaving behind a house full of men.
まあそうだ、直りや。
何？
So called out to Naoto just as the latter was about to return to his room.
今度年明けかな。親戚のお子さんをこちらで預かることになったから。
親戚？ひな神のじゃなくて？
ひな神の親戚をうちで預かる意味がないだろう。
Yuzura, having originally been a Hinagami himself, nodded.
千里、お前のお母さんの妹だが、そこの兄弟でな。自然の多いところでの療養がしたいそうだ。
Is that going to be Chizuru then? Because when she was talking to Reiji, like, oh yeah, I had this camera and I was sent away to the mountains so I could be around like natural air or whatnot.
自然が多いって。それ以外ここには何もないだろ。
何も当時だけが療養というわけじゃないぞ。
わかってるよ。
年頃の娘さんらしいからの手出すんじゃないぞ。
じいさんの方が怪しいだろ。
それは健康診断だよ。
Jesus. So didn't sound the least bit ashamed of himself.
彼女にいなくなられたら、この病院はあっという間に傾くんですから。
七子がいなくても病院はここしかないんだから、潰れたりはしないだろ。
バカ言っちゃいかんぞ、直り。七子くんがいなくなればわしがあっという間にくたばるわい。
その元気があれば、お父さんは100まで行きますよ。
Naoto silently agreed with his father.
まあともかくそういうことだから。最近は東京の方もきな臭くなっとるそうだし。
この夏から東京では食堂でも米が出てこなくなったと兄貴が言ってましたからね。
富山の山奥じゃその感覚もつかめんからな。
Yuzura and So's conversation turned to current events.
米国と戦争を始めるんじゃないかって話も出ているそうだな。
おかげでコウモリがトビに変わってしまいましたよ。
Yuzura grumbled as he played with a cigarette in his fingers.
それじゃ、俺は勉強があるから。
おう。
Naoto retreated to his room and opened a book. He didn't actually have all that much studying to do. He simply wanted to read one of his favorite books. The plan was for him to become a doctor just like the rest of the men in his family. He was indeed working toward that goal. But that was still a long way off. For now, he just wanted to savor the exultation of creating fictional worlds. Naoto whipped out a stack of papers and started composing words with his pencil. What he was writing couldn't yet be called a novel just yet, merely a collection of sentences he jotted down little by little. He simply penned whatever came to mind. Thus, he couldn't write on manuscript paper just yet. However, even he had no idea when he'd finished the story. Okay, interesting. The lantern light illustrated Satsuki's shadow against the wall. Not even a single window decorated the room. In fact, the space was far too bare to even be called a room. From the outside, it was a mere storehouse. From the inside, it was a mere closet. That was the room Satsuki had been granted. It had been furnished with the minimum she required to live. But that was it. Nothing more and nothing less. No. There was one thing, actually. The doll. Satsuki leaned against the dresser. Through the cold mirror was the image of Satsuki, scintillating like a heat haze.
今日面白い人に会ったの。
Satsuki spoke to the mirror. Oh.
誰？
Satsuki asked back. Okay, so they're locking her in a room and she's starting to lose it a bit. Okay.
ひな神の人、それと黒屋の人も。そう。
Satsuki nodded and picked a doll off the floor.
リヒトさんというの。本名は綾人さん。リヒト。その人が。ええ。
What do you mean he's the one? Satsuki caressed the doll's cheek. What do you mean he's the one? Almost as though the doll itself had responded. What do you mean he's the one? What are you talking about? The one for what? Satsuki stood stunned in the presence of a building on the edge of Kamihina that she'd never before visited. The Hinagami estate. It was far more grand and antiquated than she'd pictured. That wasn't to say she hadn't heard the stories about them, of course. The Hinagamis were the clan that ruled over the settlement of Hitogata. They'd immigrated to this land along with the Shigasas and founded Hitogata around 4 to 5 centuries ago during the Sengoku period.
どうかしましたか？
Kensei, who'd escorted Satsuki here, turned back to face her.
いえ、思っていたよりもずっと立派なので驚きました。
Satsuki gave her honest impressions.
昔からこの集落に富を与える家ですからね。ひな神家は。
存じております。
さて、待たせるのも悪いし。
はい。
Satsuki was brought to a room where she sat down, awaiting the head of the family. Kensei was no longer with her. She'd probably gone to make some sort of arrangements. Satsuki sat up straight once the door behind her slid open.
待たせたな。
The room boomed with a dignified voice. Satsuki didn't respond, simply prostrating herself in concert with the shuffle of footsteps, pattering across the tatami mats. She kept holding that stance. Eventually, she heard the rustling of clothes, sensing a presence seating itself on the opposite floor cushion.
表を上げ。
Satsuki slowly ceased, kowtowing with that command. The grimace of an old man with profound wrinkles greeted her.
この度、客として仕草へ参りました。
Satsuki bowed again.
ひな神家主人。ひな神秀臣だ。
存じてございます。
Hideyomi snorted. Satsuki realized she must have committed some sort of faux pas. Was that not how I was meant to respond? Whatever she'd done, she found her insides freezing over in the face of this man. His aura was intimidating and majestic. No, something beyond that.
滞在中、ごゆるりとなされよ。
はい、ありがとうございます。
祭りはおよそ3月後。それまでは。
はい、かしこまりました。
Hideyomi rose to his feet. Satsuki prostrated herself again and held still until he was gone. She finally heaved a deep sigh after the door behind her shut. The conversation hadn't lasted even a minute, yet already she felt positively drained. She dearly wished she could have traded places with someone. But that was a pipe dream, of course. For meeting with the head of the Hinagamis was a key duty of Satsuki's. Satsuki straightened her back again when the door opened once more.
私だよ、さつきさん。
She relaxed as soon as she realized it was Kensei.
そこまで緊張しなくてもいいよ。
ですが
Satsuki pouted when she saw a hint of jest in Kensei's smile.
立てるかい？
はい
She rose to her feet with Kensei's help and smoothed out her clothes.
さて、おいとますることにしましょうか。それとも、綾人くんたちの帰りを待つかい？
必要ありません
Satsuki shook her head. She didn't feel like she needed to see him again, knowing she had no idea what she'd even say.
じゃあ、行きましょうか。
ええ
Satsuki followed Kensei and left the Hinagami estate behind. Okay. Hutami Inn sat to the east of Maihena. Naoda and company had a mass just outside it.
なおちゃんとリヒトこれ持って。
You brought a flat of futon from the shed.
持って行ってもいいのか？
何度も打ち直しててもう限界らしいから。
じゃあリヒトが持ってくれ。わかった。
Ayato rolled up the worn-out futon and tossed it out on his shoulder.
急須と湯飲みはうちから持ってきたけど夜間はあるの？土瓶じゃ効率悪いし。ここにあるわよ。
You procured a stained brass kettle from the shed.
他に必要なのは何かしら？
炭焼き用の小屋だから燃やすものはあるし、マッチも持ったから。こんなもん。じゃあ行こうか。左ヒンナだっけ？
The gang took off with their stuff in tow.
ゆかさんがお餅を包んでくれたのよ。
Karen happily showed off something in a cloth wrapper. Miss Kirimura, Yuka Kirimura, was a maid for the Hinagami family.
薬網はあるの？
あるけど、火鉢は一つきりだから、お湯を沸かすのとは一緒にできないぞ。あ、水はどうするの？裏に小さな川が流れてるから問題ないさ。
You looked up toward the stairs to the shrine.
誰かしらあの子。
ん？おう。
A girl was casting a curious gaze their way.
おい、リヒト。何？
Naoda took the futon from Ayato after the latter came over.
あの子も誘ってこいよ。
Ayato looked where Naoda was pointing and finally noticed the girl, Satsuki.
いいのかい？せっかくだし、みんなにも紹介しておきたいだろう。そうだね。
Ayato dashed for the stairs.
どなたですか？
Karen quizzically cocked her head.
しぐさ神社のお客さん。
ああ、前にうちへ挨拶に来たと聞かされてます。
さあ。
Why not? Naoda shrugged, decided to keep things ambiguous.
お客様に妙なこと教えたら叱られるんじゃないかしら。妙なことって？そりゃ隠れ家に誘ったりとか。そんなもの作ってる時点で私たちだって叱られるわよ。
防空壕を掘ってますとでも答えておけばいいさ。ま、こんな山の中を爆撃してくるやつもいないだろうけど。
掘るの？
まさか。
Ayato came back with Satsuki in tow.
やあ、久しぶり。
あ、こんにちは。
Satsuki bowed her head.
私、しぐさ神社に厄介になっております。
そんなにかしこまらなくてもいいよ。
Naoda looked like he was struggling not to laugh.
二見優です。前ヒンナにある二見旅館の。
あ、いえ、まだそういうことはあまり知らなくて。
高宮めぐり、よろしくね。いい着物よね、それ。
あ、これはしぐさの方が仕立ててくださったもので。
じゃあなおさら汚さないようにしないとね。なおちゃん、隠れ家って掃除はできてるの？
心配しなくてもきちんと埃は払ってあるよ。
じゃあ大丈夫かな。なおちゃんは綺麗好きそうだし。
ありがとうございます。
Satsuki bowed her head.
ひながみカレンと申します。そちらのあやとの双子の
Oh,
妹で
twin
す
brother.
か？
Didn't realize all were twins. Karen introduced herself despite being in a bit of a huff.
妹さんでしたか。よろしくお願いします。ええ。
Karen turned away and stomped off.
おひな？
Megally hurried after her.
私何かしてしまったでしょうか。
Satsuki gave Ayato an anxious look.
さあ、カレンが感触を起こすのはいつものことだから。
は
Ayato and Satsuki took off together.
リヒトってかなりの鈍ちんよね。
Hell yeah. You sounded positively exasperated.
そりゃまあ妹から好意を寄せられたって困るだろ。
かもしれないわね。
Naori and Yu trailed after their friends with the Huton in tow.
あの子たち隠れ家がどこにあるか分かってるのかしら。
Naori raced to the front of the group right after you asked that question. The gang ascended a narrow path of crushed snow at the back end of Hiderahina.
リヒト、ちゃんとさっちゃんの手を引いてやれよ。
Satty. God, I hate that. Naori turned his head around and advised Ayato.
分かってるよ。
Ayato looked almost offended. His friend thought him so tactless. Karen's cheeks inflated. Shut up, Karen. Satsuki nervously surveyed her surroundings.
さて、
The hut stood in a small clearing path partway up the hill. Stacks of firewood were piled nearby, buried in snow.
うわ寒そう。
Negative grimaced when faced with the hovel Naori called his secret base.
そんなことないぞ。床近くの隙間は雪が塞いでいるし、案外作りもしっかりしてる。
いいから入って火を起こしてよ。
You urged them on.
分かってるよ。リヒト、布団持っててくれ。分かった。
Naori passed it on to Ayato before sliding open the front door. Ayato's eyes widened when he followed Naori inside.
案外広いのね。
A heap of dry firewood sat in the earthen entryway.
虫とかいないでしょうね。冬だからいないわよ。多分。
Meguri and Karen placed their things on the elevated tatami mat before opening the windows.
そんなところに突っ立ってないでこっちにいらっしゃい。さっちゃんでいいのよね。あ、はい。ありがとうございます。
Satsuki took a seat on the floor.
リヒト、そこの炭が入った箱。これかい？
Ito picked up a crate with handles. Naori then grabbed some charcoal using fire tongs, threw it into the brazier, before sandwiching some old newspaper between the pieces and lighting a match.
炭がしけってたらはぜることもあるから気をつけろよ。
そのくらい分かってるわよ。うちでも使ってるから。
分かってないのがいるようだから説明したんだけどな。
え？
You turned around. Ayato and Karen were watching in awe.
すごいな、ナオちゃんは。
うちではゆかさんが大抵のことをしてしまいますからね。
彼女は君たちよりも年下だろ。
リヒトもおひなもいいところのご子息だもの。
Meguri sounded exasperated.
そちらのさっちゃんも知らなさそうだけど。
私ですか？
Satsuki responded with a puzzled tilt of the head.
冬の部屋は寒くなりますし、他に人もいませんから。
そうなんだ。
The charcoal in the brazier glowed red.
お餅焼けるかしら？
まだ早いわよ。
Meguri stopped Karen just as the latter was getting out the rice cakes in a griddle.
水汲んできた方がいいかな。そうだな。やかんを持ってこの裏手に川があるから。わかった。落ちるなよ。大丈夫だって。
兄様、私も行きます。
No, you don't need to do that. Karen followed right after Ayato.
ねえ、さっちゃん。
Meguri turned her attention to Satsuki.
あ、はい。
さっちゃんはどこから来たの？やっぱり東京とか。
あ、いえ。
However, Meguri's keen interest was only met by a stuttering, fidgety Satsuki.
じゃあ大阪？神戸とかもおしゃれでいい街みたいだし、一度は行ってみたいのよね。グリコ、さっちゃんが困ってる。
You broke her silence, unable to stand another second.
あ、
そういうことではないのですが。
Yet, despite her claims, Satsuki didn't elaborate further. Naori swiftly devised a plan to vanquish the awkward atmosphere before it could seize total dominance over the hut.
さっちゃん、これ食べるかい？
Took a box out of his pocket and handed it to Satsuki.
キャラメルですか？
あ、それ！
Meguri practically jumped the moment she spotted it.
なんだよグリコ。俺はただキャラメルをあげただけだぞ。
グリコさんもいかがですか？
No, don't give her shit. Satsuki handed the red caramel box over to Meguri.
走ってきたら300メートル。嫌よ。
Satsuki looked back and forth between the two girls in confusion.
その箱に書いてあるだろう。一粒300メートルって。
じゃあこの人がグリコさん？
Satsuki pointed to an illustration on the box of a man jogging.
違うわよ。なおちゃんのあだ名の付け方はおかしいの。
そんなことないと思うけどな。
普通にメグとかでいいじゃない。これからはそう呼んでよ。わかったわよ、グリコ。わかってない。
Just then the door opened with Ayato and Karen quickly shuffling in.
ただいま。おかえり。落ちなかったか？あんな細い川になんて落ちないって。
Ayato filled the teapot with water from the kettle.
ありがとう。
You set the teapot atop the kettle stand that sat atop the brazier.
この小屋はどなたが住んでいたんですか？
Karen asked after taking a seat on the floor cushion.
炭焼きの休憩用だから住んでいたわけじゃないぞ。冬は誰も使わないからちょっと拝借してるだけさ。
誰にも許可取ってないの。
You sighed wearily.
それで駐在所で話したくなかったのか。だから絶対に危ないことに使うんじゃないぞ。
わかってるわよ。
Oh no, we're gonna be having so much funny business in this shed. Don't you even worry about it. Satsuki nervously raised her hand.
なんだい、さっちゃん。
危ないことって具体的にどんなことですか？
それはなんだろうな。
Nowadays scanned the room as he struggled to formulate an answer.
火を使うとか？
今使ってるわよ。
Megumi didn't hesitate to call Ayato out.
国家転覆を企むとか。
そりゃ危なすぎる。
At the very least, it wasn't something people could openly joke about in this day and age.
男女の秘め事。
The air temporarily froze at Karen's suggestion. Yeah, easy, girl. I think you're a bit too attached to your brother there.
お前な。
Ayato gave Karen a tiny whack on the head.
いた。もうちょっと行ってみただけじゃない。お湯沸いたみたいよ、若女将。
You poured the hot water into a smaller teapot before probably filling their teacups with tea.
はい、どうぞ。
She then served the first teacup to Satsuki.
私ですか？
私たちにとってもお客様だもの、さっちゃんは。
Satty.
ありがとうございます。いただ。
Satsuki took a sip of her tea.
美味しいです。
よかった。
You smiled. Once everyone had their fill of tea, Karen set the griddle atop the kettle stand covering the brazier.
やっとお餅の出番ね。
腹減ってたのか？
そういうわけじゃありませんけど。
Why are you fucking hungry, fat ass? Karen inflated her cheeks again.
おひなはさっきからずっとお餅焼いてたじゃない。
What, she got like fucking gangrene or something? You got the scurvy?
そんなことしてないわ
You
よ。
got the scurvy,
火
don't
鉢だ
you?
って一つしかないし。
Twins cocked their heads in bewilderment.
火を使わなくてもお餅は焼けるのですか？
もう一人分かっていないのがいた。
はい。
It wasn't long before the rice cake started swelling atop the griddle. Well, that's a nice little scene.
おひな、お醤油持ってきてる？
もちろんよ。
Karen removed a bottle of soy sauce and plates from the cloth wrapper before setting them down.
この辺のはもう焼けてるから食べてもいいわよ。
カレンが最初に食えよ。待ってたんだろ？
もう兄様あったら。
Yeah, despite her complaints, Karen poured a little soy sauce onto a rice cake and took a bite out of it.
さっちゃんも。どうぞ。
Yeah, Satty. Ayato served one of them to Satsuki.
ありがとうございます。
Satsuki quickly dug in as well.
美味しいです。
よかった。
Before long, everyone had stuffed themselves full of rice cakes. Megumi plopped down on the folded futon behind her.
食べてすぐ横になると牛になるわよ。若女将はほんとお母さんみたいだよね。
Meguri grumbled as she stood, or rather sat her ground, refusing to budge an inch.
そんなことないと思うけど。
Everyone in the hut, with the exception of Meguri, had lost their mothers at a young age. While the main gang didn't know if the same could be said of Satsuki, no one was insensitive enough to ask either. Naori himself had no idea what mothers were like. Though in his case, there were at least people taking care of him in his mother's stead.
ねえさっちゃん。
Satty. Karen suddenly broke the ice.
はい、なんでしょう。この前うちのおじい様に挨拶に来たのでしょ。ええ、お伺いしましたが、おじい様って怖くありませんでしたか。あ、威厳のある方だと思いました。
Satsuki chose her words very carefully, skirting the issue.
兄様なんていつも叱られているのよ。
そんなことないだろ。
Now it's Ayato's turn to inflate his cheeks.
だって兄様ってばひながみ製薬を継ぐためのお勉強もしていないでしょ。
別に継ぎたいとか考えてないし。まあまあ、そんなものはもっと後になってから考えてもいいんじゃないか。
Now he threw his friend a bone before he started sulking in earnest.
なあちゃんだって病院継ぐのに勉強してるんだろ。俺はお前より年上だからさ。
本当に勉強してるんだったらこんなところで油売ってたりしてないわよ。
You sniped.
まあそれはそれで若いうちは楽しんでおきたいだろう。
そうかもね。私だってこうして羽を伸ばしてるんだし。というかさ、若女将もそろそろ帰らないと大女将に叱られるんじゃないの。
The days were short in the winter.
この時期はお客も来ないし大丈夫だろうけど。
そうだな。
Naori got up and smothered the charcoal in the brazier with ash.
布団とかは置いていっていいんだよな。
ええ、構わないわ。このお皿は
持って帰るわよ。私がゆかさんに叱られちゃうもの。
Karen collected the plates and wrapped them in the cloth once more.
僕が持つよ、カレン。
別に兄様はさっちゃんが転ばないように見ていればいいじゃないですか。
Okay, fuck you too.
それもそうだね。
Ayato went to attend to Satsuki without a second thought.
もう
What, you're trying to play hard to get? Trying to be like, oh no, I can do it by myself. And you expect him to be like, no, I insist. He's like, why don't you go take care of that other woman, huh? He's like, okay, yeah. Karen's face inflated with chagrin while Meguri struggled to contain a laugh behind her.